I mean, at Ipsos particularly, we've been on a real journey too. So we have actually our own internal tool called Ipsos Facto, which we launched a couple of years ago now. And that's a resource available to all staff internally and utilizes a bunch of different AI models within it as well, which is regularly updating. So we're getting some of the latest ones involved. And that sort of is model agnostic. So we can go.
Hi everyone, welcome to Clearcast podcast, and today we have with us Tim Bond. So Tim, would you just like to give an introduction about yourself? What do you do? What all you're working at?
Yeah, of course. So I'm an associate director within Ipsos, within a specialist media and technology team based here in the UK, but working for clients internationally. I've been here around 2.5 years now. And really, our focus here is being researchers. So we're really experts in audiences, helping clients to make confident decisions within their businesses through the research that we do. One of our key sort of USPs within our team is understanding media in context to really be able to gain trusted insights. Also using innovative solutions and tech, which I know we'll touch on through this conversation, I'm sure, and where it's required. In terms of the kinds of businesses we work for, that's anyone from sort of big tech clients like Meta or Google, media owners, some more traditional media owners like the BBC or Disney, also social platforms, so Snapchat, TikTok, and also other sort of related broader media sectors. Gaming clients like Sega, but also the Premier League here in the UK, who obviously run one of the largest sports leagues in the world.
Yeah, definitely.
Prior to that, I actually spent 7 years with the Data and Marketing Association here in the UK as the insight lead. So that's sort of when my history and passion come in terms of the sort of broader marketing landscape as well. I also joined there many moons ago when the GDPR text was finalised, literally my first week there. So it was certainly an eventful nearly 7 years that I spent there.
Wow, that's quite like an extensive portfolio you have there. Like you work with some really big brands, some really big people. So I'm sure like your insights when we get into like, performance marketing and everything would be like, pretty helpful when we get into these questions. Right. So, I mean, you just touched on it a little bit right now, but the first question I'll just be sort of diving into is what first sparked your interest in data marketing and, just performance marketing in general and in the tech that goes with it? And how did your background, because we observed that you did social sciences back in the day, how did that sort of contribute in this particular pursuit?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I've always been a bit of a geek and I've always kind of liked technology and understanding how things work as well. So as soon as I started to get sort of into marketing and understanding people, that really only exacerbated. I think that's where my passion, particularly in social science, developed too, to be honest. But the broader media and marketing space is one that sort of as soon as I found, I was fascinated by, understanding again like how things work. So I was interested in the space initially. And the fact is that over the last sort of 10, 15 years, it's kept moving so quickly that it's hard not to keep being interested in how things change and shift, right? And understanding what the world looks like today and what it might look like tomorrow. So that's really been a big change. I think in terms of my journey, I think social sciences has really played a key role in that, and wanting to understand people in particular and how they sort of drive change and how businesses need to understand the sort of ever-changing landscape. Just think of just in my relatively short lifespan, but it's been 40 years, and how the way that brands can speak to customers has evolved over that time. Comparing it now to my kids and the experiences they're growing up with is completely different. So yeah, it's an interesting time.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point that you bring up, like about how social sciences and stuff, because we don't directly relate that, like as like if I've always been like a technical person, so if I hear like marketing and performance marketing, it's always about like numbers, algorithms. But then at the end of the day, marketing is more like a study of the people. You have to sort of figure out what the people need and how they will gauge. So yeah, I think that really puts a cool perspective of like having social sciences and psychology in the background, Okay, cool. So I'll just move on to the next question. Can you describe any early influences or mentors who helped shape your path towards a career in insights and communication?
Yeah, of course. So I'll be honest, most of them were lecturers actually at my university. So I went to the University of Aberdeen in a very cold northern Scotland. But there was one in particular. There were also some choice colleagues along the way. Actually, I think all of whom know who they are, if any of them are seeing this. But I've certainly told them over the years. But there was one lecturer in particular who reminded me of two main things, really. He taught me this idea of looking at the world and trying to map out maybe what you think it looks like, and sort of the theory of change or of the situation, and then actually holding that up to what that looks like in real life. And it's often where those deviations are between what you think it's going to be and what actually happens. That's kind of where some of the interesting stuff really comes out. So it's a thing I've always held on to. The other thing he encouraged me to be was contrarian through all of our sort of tutorials and seminars, not just to go with the group, and be willing to sort of argue the counterfactual, which I think is sometimes has been challenging over the years, but has definitely sort of encouraged me to essentially not just ask questions, but also question things. Not realize, and then when I found this role and these kinds of jobs that I've done over the years, I didn't realize that being that kind of slightly argumentative, some might say, person could actually end up being a job, which has been great.
But as you mentioned, the whole sort of questioning everything and this contrarian approach, how you sort of have to rationalize what you do and the steps you take. Has this thinking sort of come into the picture anytime in a career? Has this mentality ever led to a unique solution?
Yeah, definitely. I think always being willing to try new things and experiment and try and find new solutions to existing problems. Just because it's the way that we have done it in the past, or that you traditionally do it, doesn't mean it's necessarily the only way it can be done, or it should necessarily be the way that it's done in the future. So, without getting into too many specifics, because I can't necessarily talk about previous client work, but yeah, I think definitely being willing to try new things is key.
Okay, cool. So, of course, you've just mentioned that you have worked with like a bunch of different clients and a bunch of big names in the industry. So over your 15 years of professional experience, what have been the most pivotal moments or milestones that have defined sort of your career?
Yeah, so I kind of touched on one already, which was definitely joining the DMA, the Data Marketing Association, not least because, like I mentioned, GDPR was a major part of my first, I'd say 3, 4, maybe even 5 years there, because it was coming into force, and then actually trying to work with, as a membership organization, how to teach businesses how to sort of navigate these really quite significant new rules. So that was really interesting, not least also because I think I know more about the GDPR than I ever thought I needed to at the time. Certainly as a researcher in that space, I didn't know I'd be quite that technical, being able to quote passages of it at times. But yeah, I think that was massive, and understanding the technicalities that go within marketing as well, that was a real learning curve. Then actually it was joining Ipsos 2.5 years ago. So being part of an organization that's genuinely doing incredible work around the world. I'm not just saying that because I work here, because I only work for one team. But our team that I work for is also genuinely a group of passionate media specialists, all with our sort of areas of interest within that as well. And it's genuinely a pleasure to go to work with them every day, which I think is pretty lucky. I realize that I'm really lucky, and just being able to occasionally have debates about really intricate areas of that space with somebody who's equally as genuinely interested is really fun.
So how did you transition from your roles such as head of insights and director of content strategy, and how did it prepare you for your current leadership position at Ipsos UK?
Yeah, so as I say, I spent quite a while at the DMA, and in previous agencies too, speaking to decision makers within the sort of broader media and marketing landscape. So often sort of brand side marketers or people on the leaders on the technical side or within agencies. So I think for me that really helped me understand the questions that they need answering, and the sort of areas where they're not necessarily getting I was able to bring sort of some of those to help answer those questions for Ipsos, but then also on the almost the provider side of that, if we're talking about advertising decision makers versus maybe sort of the platforms and media owners, able to try to then educate the media owners that I work with on what their ad decision makers want as well, in terms of benefits. So yeah, it was definitely an adjustment, a little bit, not just jumping from association to agency, but also jumping from the sort of decision maker side to maybe the more owner, media kind of tech owner side. But yeah, it definitely was an interesting jump.
How have you seen AI and other emerging tech change the landscape of marketing research, consumer insights over the past decade or a couple of years?
Yeah, well, I mean, just in the last couple of years, let alone 10, the shift has been significant. I mean, at Ipsos particularly, we've been on a real journey too. So we have actually our own internal tool called Ipsos Facto, which we launched a couple of years ago now. And that's a resource available to all staff internally, and utilizes a bunch of different AI models within it as well, which is regularly updating. So we're getting some of the latest ones involved, and that sort of is model agnostic. So we can go and cherry pick the best bits for different areas. But there's a host of different ways that it's already creating change within our organization and within sort of research and consumer insights more broadly. The first is the more common one, which is the assistive. So that's, Ipsos Facto being literally our assistant. I was using it just today to help me write some questionnaire sort of responses and almost brainstorm. That is that chat brainstorm tool that we can now use, but we can also use it to collate all of the amazing data we've got within Ipsos is plugged into that tool. So if we've got a sort of new topic or one that we want to go and find the most recent research that we've got as an organization, we can actually query it within that and get a really good summary that's linked out to the relevant papers and things. So yeah, as well as it all being sort of taught on the best practices. So as I say, when I'm using it for that sort of question writing brainstorm tool, it's aware of all of our best practices that we have. The other areas are in analysis. So the ability to use tools, in particular like generative AI, to analyze, big corpus of data, whether that's, multiple qualitative interview transcripts, which even just manually reading through them all can sometimes take a day, if not days, but also verbatim responses. If we've got 2,000 UK consumers answering a question that's just open text, actually being able to use the generative AI and being able to trust it as well to go through that quickly and start to come up with themes and ideas that we can then sort of again play around with, query and manipulate as we want to as well, depending on what we see. There's also the sort of facilitator tools, so things like I mentioned already, transcription, but translation, those sort of bits where it's taking content and transferring it. And also just more widely within Ipsos, we're already building a host of sort of AI-driven tools within that as well. Things from social listening software, so that's called Signals AI. We have Creative Spark AI, which is built on our old Creative Spark frameworks, which are around sort of creative excellence and creative testing. And so being able to filter is kind of more of an example than exactly how to use it. But, if you've got 10 different ideas for an ad, Creative Spark AI can potentially filter that down from 10 to maybe a short list of 2, 3, 4 that then you'd maybe put through a sort of more manual test with human responses. And so just being able to refine. We've also got ones around areas of innovation, so Inno Explorer AI, which again built on the sort of human processes that we've had in the past, but using Gen AI to sort of speed up some of those processes as well. So yeah, it is genuinely transforming my day-to-day life and us as an organization as well. Yeah.
Okay, so just sort of going in the same sort of vein, how do you ensure that human insight still continues to play a crucial role in a field increasingly influenced by, as we mentioned, like AI and machine learning and just, data analytics and a lot of these number crunching algorithms? Where do you think that human insight is still kind of pivotal?
Yeah, so this is a really, really important point, because AI is not replacing what we do as people. Hopefully in those examples I touched on, you can see that it's really there as supporting and sort of and aiding us. We talk a lot about the human plus AI. One of the things within that is that I have to believe that a really good human with a really good AI will beat either independently. So, a really good human with a good AI is better than either in silo. We often talk within Ipsos actually about this idea of sort of human intelligence plus artificial intelligence as being the future. And what it will do then is allow us as people to bring all of that sort of context and nuance and understanding, and also our lived experiences and our knowledge of clients and the space and what we think the future might look like, actually to the work that we do as well. So it's really important that we don't lose the human as part of that process. Also, sort of on the flip side, is making sure when we're thinking about implementing AI solutions, particularly for maybe consumer facing, making sure that you don't lose the customer in that as well. Because it's really important to understand where they are on that journey. I think it's sometimes all too easy working within this space to forget that we're maybe not normal with our relationship with some of these technologies. Thankfully, I get the opportunity to sort of use it and play with AI regularly, but my friends don't necessarily get that same opportunity or have that same lived experience.
Yeah. I mean, it almost sounds like AI, especially in like fields like marketing and stuff, like AI as like an assistant is like a really good way to go about it. Because obviously it's almost like having your own personal assistant where you can just bounce ideas off and just like you give it 5 ideas and maybe it'll give its own insights, and then you sort of build on that. In that way, I think when you mentioned that, that either them separately are always going to be inferior than them together. Like you always need the context and the ideas and the experiences of a human with like the full data set that an AI has.
Yeah.
And so I mean that's
even within that. I mean the idea, part of that understanding that Gen AI isn't very good necessarily at sort of context and nuance at the moment, unless you write great enormous kind of prompts to go in them, which we don't necessarily have the time to do every time we want to use them. So that kind of can become a bit of a barrier. But I think even looking to the future where potentially some of these AIs get better at understanding that, I think there's always going to be a place for the sort of human intervention, not least because if you want to decide to go the other way, it's a kind of an old adage from sort of understanding data-driven marketing from my DMA days, that just because the data says that we should do X doesn't mean that actually as a brand we're going to make the intentional choice to do Y, because actually we're going to go against the grain of what the norm and maybe what our competitors are doing just to see. It's also the idea of experimentation. You can't experiment, so you have to experiment to bring new sort of data into some of those choice architectures as well.
Right. So I can sort of just to wrap it all up, because there's something when you mentioned about GDPR and how sort of it pretty thoroughly at this point back in your days in DMA.
Yeah.
So like right now, obviously this year, like the EU AI laws were also passed, like where they're sort of restricting what use cases AI is going to be fit for, and what use cases are not acceptable or very high risk for an AI to be in. And obviously I think the UK Parliament is also in the process of making such an act right now. It's still in, I think, the deliberation. So how do you think, like, if like an AI law or something like these restrictions are passed, sort of what is your take on it when it comes to marketing? What are sort of the ethics of using AI when it comes to marketing and data analytics especially? I just wanted to sort of have your perspective on it.
I think it's sort of a lot of legislation around sort of marketing and use of data more broadly, whether it's GDPR or so some of the some of the other ones in other markets around the world. It all kind of comes back to this essential principle of, it's sort of a mixture of the Daily Mail test and what I've also called almost the kind of your grand test. So can you actually explain and look a loved one in the eye and say, this is okay? Because actually I think if you sort of have that general test of, are you comfortable and happy with what you're doing? Actually, you probably won't be too far the wrong side of the law. Yes, there'll be nuances and there might be little bits that technically you're not allowed to do this, that or the other. But actually, if you're putting the customer and the consumer at the heart of what you're doing and genuinely trying to do good for them rather than take advantage of them, you shouldn't fall too far foul of any legislation that's put in. Because if you are, then the legislation is probably overly restrictive. And I don't think anybody wants either of those situations.
Right. Actually, that's a really good way of looking about it. Like just putting the consumer at heart, like thinking of them as like a family member and stuff. I think that's really good mentality to go forward. I think that's what is actually required, because we want this tech to be used in a non-malicious manner. We want it to help us and not be used in a way that might just affect its use cases. And yeah, I mean, it is a new time coming. It's an interesting time. So it's uncertain but a scary time, but still pretty exciting. The new things it's gonna get. Right. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the questions from my end. And yeah, thank you very much for giving us your time and your insights. They have been like really great, and this was a great conversation, honestly. Far deeper into AI and tech than I thought, but it was really great. It was a pleasant surprise, and yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure. Thanks.
Okay, so I mean, yeah, I think that's pretty much it, honestly. I think. Yeah, I mean, again, just thanks from my end for doing this with us. I think we didn't get the chance to meet at PMW. I think we sort of didn't get the time.
I ended up having to rush in and rush out. Actually, of all the odd things, I had to rush out after the panel I did to go to a colleague of mine. Basically, quite literally, his house flooded, and he was supposed to go to an awards thing with a client of ours in the afternoon, so I actually had to hot shoe it over across London to go to an awards thing. It wasn't like it was a horrible experience, I got to sit and have a nice lunch and chat to some clients, but yeah, I mean, I didn't quite get as long to spend at PMW as I wanted.
Yeah. I mean, at PMW, a lot of people, they would like sort of, I think it was a bit last minute for them as well. They came in and out like really quickly. There wasn't much time, but I mean, but it was still a good event, and hopefully we can again see each other in some other event. You're coming forward in UK at some time.
For sure.
And yeah, it was great. It was a great conversation. Thank you very much, Tim.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Have a good one, you too. Bye bye.